Okay, let's just dive right in. We hear the word sustainable all the time, right? But what does it actually mean for a business today? Because it's not just a buzzword anymore, not by a long shot. It's quickly becoming a hard and fast rule for how companies have to operate and plan for the future.
And yeah, that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a question that's moving out of the marketing department and straight into the boardroom. And the answer is getting way more specific, way more standardized.
So, to really get a handle on what sustainability means today, you have to start right here, with this idea, the triple bottom line. It's pretty simple, really. The thinking is that a truly successful company can't just look at its profit. It has to balance that financial performance with its social impact, the people, and of course, its environmental impact, the planet.
But, how do you actually prove you're doing that? How do you manage that tricky balance? Well, that's exactly where sustainability standards come into play. They're like a universal translator, turning these big, fuzzy goals into concrete, measurable actions that everyone, investors, customers, you name it, can actually understand and trust.
And look, this isn't just some feel-good PR exercise. This is smart business. A recent PwC study found something that's pretty wild. More than 8 out of 10 consumers say they're willing to pay more for sustainable products. People are literally voting with their wallets.
And it goes way beyond just reputation. It's about raw efficiency. Check this out. 40%. That's the kind of cut in energy use some companies have seen just by implementing a standard like ISO 14001. A 40% reduction isn't just great for the planet. That is a serious boost to the profit part of that triple bottom line we were just talking about.
Okay, so standards are clearly important. But you have to understand, until pretty recently, the world of these standards has been, well, a bit of a Wild West, a really crowded and kind of confusing marketplace. There are a ton of different players, all with different goals. Let's try and map this out real quick.
So you've got a few different levels to this whole thing. At the checkout counter, you see consumer labels like fair trade. Then, inside a company, you've got operational standards like ISO, which help make things run more efficiently. But for the big picture stuff, for investors and the public, the real action is in these huge reporting frameworks, historically led by the GRI, but now being totally reshaped by a new heavyweight, the ISSB.
And right here, this is the pivot point. This is the distinction that changes the entire game. For years, frameworks like the GRI focused on what's called impact materiality, basically how a company's actions affect the world. But the ISSB comes in and flips the script. It focuses on financial materiality, how the world and its sustainability issues affect the company's bottom line. It's a subtle change in wording, but a massive shift in perspective.
And that massive shift, well, it throws us right into a whole new financial reality. This is the exact moment sustainability stops being this separate, nice-to-have report and becomes baked right into the core of a company's financial reporting. You got to see how fast this happened. Before 2021, reporting was messy, voluntary, kind of all over the place. Then, bam, in 2021, the IFRS Foundation, and these are the people who set accounting rules for most of the world, steps in and creates the ISSB. This was a huge deal. It put sustainability on a collision course with finance. And now, in 2024, their new standards are here.
The mission here is actually pretty simple, but it's totally revolutionary. Create a single global rulebook for sustainability reporting. The goal is to make a company's climate data just as reliable, just as rigorous, and just as comparable as its balance sheet. For an investor, that is an absolute game changer.
So this big mission gave birth to 2 powerful new standards, IFRS S1 and S2. And together, they're basically the new rulebook for how businesses have to talk about these issues. Let's take a quick peek inside.
All right, so IFRS S1 is the foundation. It's the bedrock, and it forces companies to answer 4 huge questions. First, governance. Who's actually in charge of this stuff at the top? Second, strategy. Okay, how does this really affect the way we make money? Third, risk management. How are we spotting these risks and what's the plan? And finally, metrics and targets. How are we going to measure all this? See? It embeds this thinking deep into the company's DNA.
And if S1 is that broad foundation, S2 gets laser focused. It takes all those same pillars, governance, strategy, all of it, and points them like a laser beam at one specific thing:
climate-related risks and opportunities. Now, a massive part of IFRS S2 is disclosing greenhouse gas emissions, and they're broken down into 3 scopes. Let's imagine you run a coffee shop. Scope 1 is easy. It's the emissions you create directly. Think the natural gas your ovens are burning, or the exhaust coming out of your delivery van. It's what you burn yourself. Next up is Scope 2. Back at our coffee shop, this is the emissions from the electricity you buy to run the lights and the big espresso machine. You aren't generating those emissions yourself at the power plant, but hey, you're using the juice, so it's on your tab. And then there's the big one, Scope 3. Man, this one is the real beast. It's the most challenging because it's everything else. For our coffee shop, it's the emissions from growing the beans, shipping them to your door, manufacturing the paper cups, and even your customer driving home. It's the whole shebang, from the farm to the trash can.
So what does this all add up to? What's the bottom line? It means we are entering a new era where high-quality, comparable, standardized sustainability reporting is no longer a nice-to-have or a voluntary add-on. It's becoming a core requirement of doing business, period.
And this is exactly why having one set of rules, a single global baseline, is so powerful. It just clears up all the confusion. For companies, there are no more guessing games. You get a clear roadmap. For investors, it's a huge relief. You finally get data you can actually trust and compare between companies. And for regulators, you get a solid, consistent foundation to build policy on. It's a win-win-win, all centered on clarity.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The era of just talking about sustainability, of making vague promises and glossy reports, that's over. The market is now demanding verifiable, standardized, and financially relevant data. The time for action is, without a doubt, now.
And all of this leads to one final, really critical question. It's a question every business leader, every investor, even every employee should be asking. Now that sustainability is becoming a core financial requirement, the simple question is this: is your business ready?